Country's premier broadcast news organization. This is Action News.
More on the dangerously cold weather. Let's go right to Tom Casey in First Weather Check. Case.
And it looks like this dangerously cold weather will be with us right through the weekend. Tonight, very cold coupled with the wind. That is our problem now. We're having wind gusts up into the 25, 30 mile an hour range. These are wind chills as of about 9:30 this evening, 28 degrees below zero. That's the feels like temperature out in DuBois. 30 below zero in Johnstown. That is the chilliest spot in the state. That's up on the mountain. It is not quite so bad in protected areas. Nonetheless, we anticipate the temperature down below zero tonight, coupled with the winds. It is a dangerous cold. Now, there were a few snow showers and squalls around. Nothing that will show up on radar. It looks like any kind of major anticipation, probably accumulation, will not take place. Nonetheless, Somerset County, Cambria County, the northern tip of Center and Clinton counties, and then back toward the lake, we'll see snow squalls over the next 36 hours. Sometimes that creates visibility problems. Certainly it will create some travel problems, slippery roadways, ice-covered roadways. The cold is our biggest problem, however, and you will awake to the chilliest day thus far this year. Temperatures will get down below zero tonight, not go much, if at all, above zero during the day tomorrow. Please take every precaution you can against cold weather. And we'll talk about the rest of the weekend and the possibility of some problems even coming up next week. That's ahead on Action News. For right now, there's First Weather Check.
But witnesses say the man was traveling east when his car went out of control near the Gallitzin exit about 9:30 this morning. Firefighters had to rescue the man from his crushed car. He was life-flighted to Conemaugh Hospital in Johnstown. His name and condition are not yet being released.
Hello, it's the Action News Night Beat for Monday, January 31st. I'm Craig Demchek.
And I'm Caroline Sarnoff. More on this Keystone Country pileup that claimed one life and seriously injured two other people.
And call it a flash of brilliance tonight at St. Francis.
Scott Sloan of Asheville, two other boys, 16-year-old Brian Jacobs of Asheville and 17-year-old Brent Benedict of Gallitzin, are in critical condition at Conemaugh Hospital. The accident happened on a straight stretch of road just before 1 o'clock this afternoon. Police say the car went off the berm and hit a frozen snowbank, then went airborne and hit a tree.
Teenager dead, two others fighting for life tonight. State police tell Action News the accident happened at around noon today on Route 36 in Gallitzin Township between Asheville and Buckhorn. Police say they still don't know who was driving the car, which ran off the road, hit a snowbank, became airborne, and slammed into a tree. All three occupants are 17 years old and all are from Asheville. Scott Sloan was killed in the crash. Brian Jacobs and Brent Benedict were flown to Conemaugh Hospital, where they remain in critical condition tonight. And a 22-year-old Altoona man also is hospitalized at Conemaugh tonight, being treated for injuries he suffered in a one-car crash on Route 22 in Blair County. State police say Mark Striley fell asleep while driving east on 22 at around 10 this morning. The car ran off the road, flipped several times, and landed on its roof.
With an undisclosed amount of cash from a northern Cambria County bank. Just before noon, a white male approached a teller at Laurel Bank in Crescent Borough, brandished a small handgun, handed the teller a note, and took off on foot with the money. The police were on the scene immediately. They set up roadblocks around the area. The man, described as 5 feet 6 inches tall, in his early 30s. Police say he has a scruffy beard and long black hair, which was in a ponytail and tucked into a ball cap. He was wearing a black leather jacket at the time. Tanya Harding's Olympic...
Hello, it's Action News for Friday, February 4th. I'm Craig Demchek.
And I'm Caroline Sarnoff. The second daylight robbery this week in Cambria County, this time a bank in Crescent.
And we'll wrap up
Police information. Call your local police.
Oh, proving that even weather is relative. I thought long awaited at Caroline's soap debut after days of anticipation. CBS came through today and aired the As the World Turns episode, in which Caroline appears as an extra. If you watch today, you can still enter the Caroline's soap debut contest. Send a postcard explaining what she was doing, what in the world she was doing. P.O. Box 10, Altoona 16603. The drawing for a VCR will be out next Wednesday, February 9th. Now, all of us got together here and we thought, if this is what it takes to be in a soap opera, you only had to eat a salad, right? That's all you were doing at the restaurant at Emilio's?
Salad.
Yeah. So you just sit here and you talk. You take a bite.
It's kind of tough, except my leaves were much larger.
Character acting? I don't know. What is?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. It's good. Doesn't seem that hard to me. I don't know if that's all it takes to be on a soap opera.
Of course, this is a hint, I guess, even more so than the ones we've already given.
Oh, you mean as far as what she was doing in the restaurant?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You told me. You told me that you were going to wear a bright way and hold up a card with a Bible or something. That's how you were going to get on television.
That's it for Action News. We'll see you later.
Good night.
in tonight is investigating an robbery at a downtown bank. Late this morning, a white male used a handgun to hold up Laurel Bank in that borough. Now, police say that he may still be in the area, and our Mindy Becerra reports.
Cars lined the street leading out of Crescent Borough today as police checked every car and truck, looking for the man who made off with an undetermined amount of cash from the Laurel Bank on Front Street.
Suspect left the bank on foot. We don't know if he got into a vehicle and fled the scene from there or if he just fled on foot. That's why we're checking the vehicles coming out of town just to see if we can find the person to match the description, and we're checking them out as they come by.
What is that description?
He's a white male in his early 30s. He's has a black t-shirt with yellow and green lettering on it, blue jeans. He was wearing a light-colored ball cap, sunglasses, a leather jacket. And they said he had a mustache also.
Police say the suspect walked through these doors about 11:40 this morning, pulled out a small handgun, pointed it at a teller, and demanded money. Customers unaware of what happened were surprised to find the bank closed for emergency, and even more surprised when they found out that emergency was a robbery. Crescent police say there hasn't been a bank robbery here in half a century. Though the FBI is handling the case, local and surrounding police forces were on hand to help, and by late this afternoon they learn of a possible lead and hope it's just a matter of time before they find the suspect. They've got one good thing to go on, his picture, taken by the lobby cameras. In Crescent Borough, Mindy Becerra, Newswatch.
Now, police have released to us this composite. He is described as being about 30 years old, 5 foot 6 inches tall, with dark brown hair and a ponytail that at the time was tucked under a baseball cap. He has a hoop earring in one ear and a mustache, as well as a scruffy beard.
A pair of Johnstown men are arrested.
To cross in front of an Indiana of slipping down
30. Arrested in that fatal shooting. Stand in.
Pointed a small handgun at the teller, and then he demanded cash. Police have come up with a composite sketch, and if you see the man, and we do not have this sketch for you, obviously, but if you see a man answering the description of what we had showed you on Friday in the composite sketch, please call the police immediately. He may be armed and dangerous.
In other news, the
Cambria County School died and 2 others were critically injured in a car crash. The school district took immediate action to help the other students cope with their grief. And today, almost a week after the accident, Channel 8's Galen Tatrai introduces us to Penn Cambria's crisis response team.
School districts have a goal of educating students, but now many schools are taking on the responsibility of helping students deal with personal tragedies. In coping with such delicate issues, schools rely heavily on contingency policies.
Unfortunately, here at the Penn Cambria School, the district had to enact one of these policies when a tragic automobile accident claimed the life of one student and critically injured 2 others.
We try to take the family approach here, that this is one large family, and we had lost a member of our family, no matter how large it is, out of the 588 students.
I think whenever we go through a tragedy like this, we need to stop and say, wait a minute, this is real life. This is how do we normally act in a situation like this? How are we going to talk to these kids?
This school also used community resources to deal with the grief and shock of the student's death.
So we use not only our policy, but then additional aids, because there are lots of things written about adolescents dealing with death and dying.
A school crisis team took immediate action to prepare for students who walked into school the morning following the tragedy.
At a time like this, if there's anything you need, it's unity.
What is appropriate for people in this community? A good example of that is the decision to take a bus to the funeral. He's well aware that many of the students have parents who work.
However, there are no measures that can take away the pain associated with the sudden death of a young person. But what has taken place here is evidence this school has begun the important process of healing.
We're probably going to continue to deal with this for quite some time. I don't think it's over in 2 or 3 days.
Well, we basically did what we thought what was right, and I think that's all that counts. If you do anything from your heart, I think that's the best thing to do.
In Crescent, Galen Tatrai, Newswatch.
And they do a wonderful job there. Now, Scott Sloan died in that car crash. Brian Jacobs and Brent Benedict remain hospitalized tonight. Danya?
Jeff, and other news.
Kevin?
Craig, Caroline, it was shortly after noon as the snow continued to fall that safety concerns were raised at this shopping center. Emergency crews were called out from Logan Township, and they brought with them a fire department ladder truck. Now, it was after the ladder was extended up over the Farmore drugstore and firefighters were able to climb out on the ladder and look down on top of the building that they knew they had a heavyweight problem.
There's probably 8 inches of ice and about 4 inches of snow on top of that.
The sheer weight of the snow and ice buildup raised concerns that part of the building would collapse. Cracks developed in both exterior and interior walls of the drugstore. Logan Township emergency crews were called out as a precautionary measure. After a quick inspection, a voluntary shutdown and evacuation was requested for the entire shopping center.
We had some police officers come in and tell us that we had to evacuate the area because the roof was buckled at Wetlock.
The move caught plenty of midday shoppers by surprise, but all were willing to quickly leave the shopping center in the interest of safety.
They made an announcement that for our safety, they had to ask us all to hurry to the checkout, make our final selection. And I was like, what final selection? You know, I just started making selections.
About 3 hours after the center was voluntarily closed, inspectors were finished checking the building and giving the okay to reopen everything except the Farmore. Repairs will continue there overnight.
Several structural columns and some grid work, just basically to increase the snow load, holding power, that's all. Nothing much to it. We should be done by 12 noon tomorrow.
Since we've been out here this evening, I've seen some heavyweight welding equipment taken into the Farmore store. Workers there tell me they're going to be on the job all night long, putting in place the extra structural supports that'll enable them to safely reopen. Reporting live, Kevin Flanagan, TV 10 X News. Greg, Caroline?
Okay, thanks, Kevin, for that report. So, despite all the rumors you may have heard flying today, no major structural damage at the Farmore store.
The snow also is causing headaches as Keystone Country residents struggle to find parking. With the amount of snow that's
on turn 4 and hit the wall head-on. He died of massive head injuries. This is what's left of Bonnet's car this afternoon as it was towed off the track. Bonnet, a winner of 18 Winston Cup races, was making a comeback after 4 years away from racing. His fellow drivers were rooting for Bonnet to make a successful comeback, but now they're mourning his death. Neil Bonnet, dead at the age of 47. TV 10's exclusive coverage of the Daytona 500 begins next Thursday.
A condition report isn't available yet. Slippery roads were making for treacherous driving conditions last night.
Takes a fatal sled riding accident in Cambria County. Firesley family's home turns fatal earlier this evening for a boy in northern Cambria County. An 8-year-old boy was killed near Hastings while sled riding with friends. Reportedly, he was hit by an oncoming car when his sled came down a driveway and onto the road. The boy was flown to Conemaugh Hospital here in Johnstown, where he died about a half hour after the accident. The coroner's office will conduct an autopsy tomorrow to find the cause of death. The boy's name has not been released tonight, pending notification of family members. This is the second sled riding fatality in recent weeks in the area. Last month in Somerset County, a boy was killed and his cousin critically injured in a sledding accident near Myersdale. A Cambria
driveway and car near Hastings on Sunday. The boy died later at Conemaugh Hospital of head injuries. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. It was just last month that a Somerset area boy was killed and his cousin critically injured in a similar accident near Myersdale. The Cambria County Coroner's Office says there have been 5 sledding deaths in western Pennsylvania this winter. It often takes a tragic accident like this one to make us stop and think how we can head off problems before they happen. Lisa McElhenney joins us now with more on that. Lisa?
Bill, experts say the bottom line is kids are looking for the slide and the thrill that's the most fun. It's up to parents and adults to make sure that fun does not become a health hazard.
Racing down a hillside on a crisp winter day can be a lot of fun. The danger lies when you fail to look before you leap. Some doctors who treat the broken bones and scrapes season after season say kids 6th grade and under should have an adult with them, and parents, any parents, need to pick the site.
They need to check the hill for stumps that may be in the snow that the children's sled could...
In Cambria County has claimed the life of an area boy. The 8-year-old is not being identified due to family notification. The accident happened last night at about 6:30 in Hastings. His sled reportedly collided with a car. The youngster was pronounced dead at the scene. Testimony resumed.
Cost you $90 in costs and fines.
The intent there, of course, is so that people won't do it, because it is so dangerous. You never know when the operator of that vehicle has to stop or has to turn or has to back up. And that certainly puts you in a precarious situation.
Good Samaritan has seen an increase in sledding accidents this season, and with the snow that we've already had, what we still expect to get, combined with the extended daylight hours that we're seeing now, we can expect some more accidents. Yeah. So safety and precautions are in order.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lisa.
Get where you're going. Take notes. They're easier to read while you're driving. In unfamiliar areas, keep your windows up and doors locked. Drive in the center lane, and if you need to stop, don't pull right up to the car in front of you. Leave yourself room to pull away if necessary. If someone bumps you from behind, don't be tricked into getting out of your car. Ask for identification and don't stop to inspect the damage. Motion for the person to follow you to a well-staffed gas station or to the local police station. Be alert. Daydreaming to your favorite music is not advisable in the current climate. Finally, if someone tries to take your car, give it to them. Your life is more important than your car. Our legal expert, Professor Arthur Miller of the Harvard Law School, has some thoughts on the criminal challenge that lies before us.
For the most part, car theft is a big, well-organized, and tremendously profitable business, just like the drug trade. Sadly, as we know from the drug environment, you win some and you lose some. It usually comes down to a matter of resources. If you have 2 police officers and they can only investigate 2 crimes, you tell me, should they investigate 2 rapes or 2 muggings or 2 stolen cars? As for the increasingly violent sport of teenage joyriding, let's not bring out the cannon fire of curfews or street stops or searches before we've considered other solutions. Our freedoms of association and movement come with our birth certificates, not with our voting cards. And every 15-year-old has the same right to be on the street as you and I. The greater use of undercover officers driving through areas prone to carjacking and theft could signal these criminals we mean business. Better lighting and armed guards in large parking lots and malls might also prevent some of the tragedies. What we are looking at is the eternal struggle between the good guys and the bad guys. And right now, in the case of car theft, it's time for the good guys to make a move.
I'm Jay Shadler, and thanks for being with us. Join us again as we look behind the headlines at crime, punishment, and the law on the next edition of the Justice Files.
Rescue workers, rapidly changing weather conditions have contributed to numerous accidents involving dozens of cars. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. At times today, the weather was almost pleasant. That may be one reason so many drivers were caught off guard.
There were at least 4 multi-car pileups today on Route 219. This accident happened this afternoon about 2 o'clock just south of the Jerome exit on 219. 10 vehicles were involved, including a Conemaugh Township police cruiser that had responded to the scene. Police say the cruiser was demolished. The officer was out of the car at the time and had to run to get out of the way. 2 or 3 people were trapped in their cars.
Other weather-related problems. Let's go to Casey with First Weather Check.
It has been just an absolutely terrible afternoon in Keystone Country. Here is a radar plot from about an hour and a half ago, and these scattered areas of green are snow showers and snow squalls, and even though they are scattered, they contain some heavy snow blasts, spurts of snow, causing whiteout conditions. There are terrible wind gusts. Somerset County reporting wind gusts up into the 50-mile-an-hour range. Other places 30, 35 miles an hour. It has created a lot of travel problems and a number of weather-related incidents in Brookville and Jefferson County. 3,500 people are without power this afternoon. I presume they are still working on that, but trees came down across a major Pennyslvania line. I think we can call that one weather-related. They're working in Somerset County near Jerome, just off Route 219, on what's reported to be a 5 to 10 car pileup. Work on that continues, but by far the most tragic event of the afternoon occurred at the Crescent Summit exit on Route 22, pardon me, in county. It happened about 4:30 this afternoon, and authorities are saying as many as 21 vehicles involved in the pileup in the eastbound lanes. There are an undetermined number of injuries. Officials, however, do report 4 known dead. No exact word on the cause of the crash. Whiteout conditions reported, coupled at the time with an ice-covered highway.
basically want to keep the road closed for at least probably 2 to 3 more hours. If the cars can avoid it, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
That obviously is an ongoing story, and we will have details throughout the evening as they occur.
A tragic 27-car accident claims the lives of 4 people.
It happened shortly after 4 o'clock this afternoon on Route 22 in northern Cambria County.
This accident was just one of several weather-related crashes across the area. Channel 8's Lori Lahosky reports.
4 people lost their lives in this multi-vehicle accident on Route 22 near the Crescent Summit exit. More than 20 cars and 2 tractor-trailers smashed into each other just before 4:30 this afternoon. Authorities say icy conditions caused this tragic crash. Emergency workers used the jaws of life to rescue the victims. Sources tell Newswatch 14 people are hospitalized tonight. Their conditions range from serious to critical. No names are being released at this time, but state police tell us Route 22 is closed from the Crescent to Gallitzin exit. Traffic is now being detoured onto Old 22. Investigators are still on the scene at this hour. And in Somerset,
Keystone Country Highway. Good evening, I'm Craig Demchek.
And I'm Caroline Sarnoff. A chain reaction crash on Route 22 in Cambria County.
The pileup has left 4 people dead tonight, more than a dozen injured.
Just before 4:30 this afternoon on Route 22 at Crescent Summit, a snow squall, howling winds, and a sheet of ice turned the highway into 2 lanes of terror. A chain reaction pileup involving 27 cars and 3 tractor trailers that left 4 dead, more than a dozen hurt.
What happened was it looked like we had a whiteout. We had some people lose control, and then it looks like we had a chain reaction type thing because of the ice and the whiteout that took place.
Hours later, Cambria County Coroner Dennis Kwiatkowski and other emergency workers are still on the scene, faced with a grim task of recovering bodies. Authorities say all 4 of those killed were in the same vehicle. We're unable to show it to you pending notification of the family. 15 people were transported to local hospitals. One of them is in critical condition. Dr. Wafa Rizik with Altoona's Mercy Hospital heard many of the victims' tales of terror.
They suddenly hit the ice on the top of the mountain and they lost control. There was a truck jackknifed and they hit and everybody piled up from there.
Looking at the wreckage, some crushed, others torn apart, it's a miracle the loss wasn't greater.
But amid the tragedy here, at least one remarkable story of survival. Authorities tell us the driver of this vehicle somehow walked away from it.
Still, it's grim evidence of the nightmare that unfolded in a matter of seconds for dozens of unsuspecting drivers.
The westbound lanes of Route 22 at Crescent Summit have been closed throughout the evening. They are closed at this hour. Authorities at last word told us that they hope to have the highway reopened by midnight.
Now for the latest on
today's 27-car pileup on Route 22 near Crescent. 4 people died in that crash and scores were injured. The Cambria County coroner says the 4 were traveling in a minivan, which was hit by an out-of-control tractor trailer. Killed were a Homer City couple, Joseph and Jane Kosmak, Phyllis Ward of Blairsville, and Mary Carter of Pittsburgh. The accident occurred in the westbound lane of Route 22, and witnesses say blowing snow created a whiteout and then cars started to skid on the icy road. Route 22, which was closed for most of the night, is now back open. Deliberations are
22 near the Crescent Summit exit. The dead have been identified. The investigation, however, is far from over. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. 4 people were killed in what was a chain reaction of crashes. Lisa McElhenney joins us now with more. Lisa?
Bill, the names of the dead were released just this morning after all family members were notified. A series of whiteouts were at the heart of this tragedy. They are unfortunately a natural occurrence during the winter months, but there are steps motorists can take to protect themselves and others. State police call yesterday's deadly 27-car pileup along Route 22 among the worst they've seen in Cambria County in more than 15 years. Joseph and Jane Kosmak of Homer City, Phyllis Ward of Blairsville, and Mary Carter of Pittsburgh were killed. 15 others hurt.
All those motorists involved in the accidents were telling us that they would have a whiteout 1 second, and then a couple minutes later they'd be able to see 300-400 feet, and then another whiteout where they couldn't see the end of the hood of their car.
Colando says whiteouts can come without warning and catch people off guard. It only takes motorists a few miles, he says, before they begin thinking less about conditions around them and more about where they're going or where they've been.
They forget about the vehicle that's close behind them. They forget about a vehicle that's a few hundred yards out in front of them. And when a situation occurs, they go into a panic situation and they either hit the brake and skid, or they just drive right into the other vehicle that was ahead of them.
Problem areas include higher elevations, especially wide open areas in which dry snow can be whipped up by high winds. It is law in Pennsylvania for motorists to turn on their headlights in any inclement weather. You also need to slow down and should turn on your four-ways. The extra illumination will make your car and others easier to spot. The one thing you shouldn't do is stop.
Anytime, whether even on a dry, sunny day, that's the worst thing to do is stop in the middle of the roadway because somebody will run right over top of you.
Colando says your best bet really is to keep moving slowly until you make it through.
Now, you mentioned it is law to have your headlights on in inclement weather, but sometimes we just don't do that.
Yeah, the law as it's written, it does specify rain, snow, sleet, hail, fog, whatever, but there is some room for interpretation. There is a law pending in the state Senate that's been reviewed since April of '93 that would require that when your wipers are on, your headlights would be on. Some other states do that as well, but as yet there's been no action on that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lisa.
About a 27-car pileup along Route 22 in Cambria County. The coroner's office has identified the 4 victims killed in that crash, and they are Mary Carter of the South Hills, Joseph and Jane Kosmak of Indiana County, and Phyllis Ward of Blairsville. The coroner says the family members died when a tractor-trailer slammed into their van. 15 others were injured in the chain reaction accident.
A frightening...
Cambria County leaves 4 people dead. It happened near the town of Crescent last night. Bad weather, the apparent cause there, and there were 30 cars in all involved in the chain reaction crash. 3 of the people who died were from Homer City, that is in Indiana County. The 4th victim was a Pittsburgh woman. Sally?
On the school...
Been identified the 4 fatalities, all members of the same family. They are Joseph and Jane Kosmak of Homer City, Indiana County, Jane's mother Phyllis Ward of Blairsville, and a sister, Mary Carter of Pittsburgh. They were traveling together from Lewistown in a van when the tragedy struck, and Channel 8's Mindy Becerra reports.
It's the most tragic highway accident Cambria County has seen in a very long time, possibly ever. 27 vehicles involved, at least 17 people injured, 3 or 4 seriously. The wreckage looming behind these firemen is what's left of a van that was carrying a family of 4, all of them killed. Police say the van was among a number of vehicles crushed by this tractor-trailer. But today on Route 22, all traces of the tragedy have all but disappeared. The investigation by reconstruction experts is just beginning.
Well, we basically have our several multiple car accidents at the same scene. And we're working, trying to piece together some of the vehicles that were involved in one accident, some of them were involved in more than one accident, being struck after they had already stopped from the first accident.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
I've been on the job for 16 years, and this is, around here, the largest one I've ever been involved in.
What caused the collisions is a freak of nature all too familiar for many drivers in this area, whiteouts. This area of Route 22 is notorious for sporadic whiteouts. You could be driving along, everything clear 1 second, but then in a flash, a gust of wind picks up snow, and you can't see anything until it's too late. PennDOT Representative Barry Lee says his organization takes a tragedy like this personally, and though there was virtually nothing PennDOT could have done to prevent it, it still raises questions in their minds.
You think back and you say, what else could we have done? Well, we had the road bare, we're putting down the material, we've got sufficient trucks assigned, there's really nothing that they can do. And yet when there's a loss of life, you feel a personal stake in it, because you always wonder, you know, was there something that could have been, you know, done better?
A question investigators hope to answer in the days ahead. In Cambria County, Mindy Becerra, Newswatch.
And still ahead, a heartwarming story of 2 local seniors.
The Cambria County coroner says all were riding in this van. They stopped because of weather and road conditions. A tractor-trailer then slammed into their vehicle. The dead are identified as Joseph and Jane Kosmak, a couple from Homer City. Jane Kosmak's mother, Phyllis Ward of Blairsville, and her sister, Mary Carter of Pittsburgh. 27 cars and 3 tractor-trailers were involved in the pileup.
2 people are dead, 2 others injured following an afternoon crash in Jefferson County. Police say 25-year-old Linda Baker of Punxsutawney was driving on State Route 119 in Big Run Borough at about 1:30 today when her car collided with a tractor-trailer. Baker and a passenger, 29-year-old Kelly Leisure of Punxsutawney, were killed. Another passenger, 10-year-old Jesse Leisure, is in serious condition tonight at Punxsutawney Hospital. A 4th passenger, 3-year-old Joshua Snare, was taken to Allegheny Hospital in Pittsburgh. His condition report is not being released. The driver of the truck escaped serious injury. And this Blair County crash tonight sent 5 Hollidaysburg residents to the hospital. It happened at the intersection of Frankstown Road and Scotch Valley Road in Frankstown Township. Police say a car driven by 35-year-old Holly Sheets pulled out into the path of a pickup driven by 29-year-old Sandy Rogers. Both drivers and 3 children in Sheets' vehicle were taken to Mercy Regional Health System in Altoona. Sheets and one of the children remain in fair condition. The others were treated and released.